I have a bit of a different book review for you today, and it is, it's adult fiction. I know, who would have thought it? I can occasionally be a bit of a grown-up. So, I have been reading The Familiars by Stacey. I received this book at an event with Bonnier, and I love it. So they didn't say that I could have a book in return for a review or anything. I just like went to the event and had something to drink, slash a lot to drink, slash forgot about the book for another 3 weeks and then started reading it, and oh my god, it's so good. It's actually in my like favorite reads of 2018, which you should have read by now, or maybe not. I don't know if it's gone live. Anyway, shall I get down to it? I'm gonna do a quick review of The Familiars. I was initially excited by this book because it's set in Lancashire in around the 17th century. So I come from Lancashire, I'm a Preston girl, it's the northwest of England, which is great, but it's also steeped in history. So you had the Pendel witch trial, which is one of the biggest witch trials I think England ever saw, behind the one that went on in Bury St Edmunds, which I can't remember right now, but my husband's from Bury St Edmunds, which makes me think that maybe we're a bit of a witchy family. Anyway, so what is this book about? This book is all about a girl called Fleetwood, which like is such a bizarre name. I'm not even gonna go into it. I actually genuinely struggled reading her name. Whenever it came up, like I would just be like, eh, and do a little bit of a, eh, you know, like when a name is just, eh, not because I couldn't pronounce it, but because it kind of bugged me that that was a name. Anyway, moving on. She is married to a man named Richard, and which always made me think of, you know, the Gilmores and the Gilmore Girls, and you've got Emily and Richard, and I always just kept thinking of Fleetwood saying, Richard. Yeah. Anyway, this book, for me, kind of, it deals with two battles. Like, the whole thing is about female struggles, and basically our main Fleetwood is pregnant, and she has been trying to bring an heir into the world for her beau, Richard, like since they got married, because that is her only duty as a woman. Yep. And on the other side of that, we have this Pendel witch trial going on, which Roger, Richard and Fleetwood's friend, are you remembering all these names? Their friend is like spearheading, basically. He wants to be in the good graces of the king, and so he is like trooping down all of the women and making sure that they're all locked up for being witches, because they may have done something or had a pet, which maybe was a familiar, aka a familiar is basically an animal, which is the devil, and it's the devil taking form in an animal, and it follows witches around and they communicate with that animal. So basically an idea being that if a woman has a really close pet that she hangs out with all the time, basically her familiar, basically means that I'm a witch because I talk to my rabbit more than I talk to my husband. You see my logic? Anyway, back to it. The Familiars. Oh my god, I'm going off on a tangent today. This is why I don't do straight out book reviews. So the first issue we have is that Fleetwood can't bring a child to full birth. She always has miscarriages. Full birth? She has miscarriages and she needs a midwife to help her. She happens to find a midwife through bizarre circumstances in the forest, and her midwife then like moves in with her. However, she seems to have some kind of weird connection to the women that are also being done in the witch trials, the Pendel witch trials, all of those Pendel witches that I talked about earlier. Richard doesn't really like her that much, but he's like, fine, you know, you're hopefully gonna, you know, bring my baby into this world, so I'll put up with you. In the meantime, Alice, who is the midwife, has some suspicions about Richard, and Fleetwood happens at the same time to find this letter which basically shows that Richard, her husband, who she thought was a doting husband and like loved her, it basically is the doctor telling Richard that she is not going to live through childbirth, which is the reason that, I'm doing this in the wrong order, but that's the reason that Fleetwood goes to find a midwife. So it's like, the whole way through this book, you find that Fleetwood is trying to struggle against all of the males in her life. So either against Roger, who is bringing on these witch trials, or against Richard, her husband, who is keeping things from her. Like, all the way through he's keeping things from her, but you kind of think, as a reader, you're like, yeah, I get it. I would be pretty pissed too. But then also it's 17th century England. There is so much wrong with like the equality thing. I mean, he for she would not be working in those times. I'm babbling. I think there are a couple of reasons that I love this book, and I'm just not going to try and tell you the story because I ain't no good at that. I love it because I love the dual struggles of women here. You have the women up high who are quite wealthy, who are struggling in life because of the constraints put on them by men, so they otherwise look free and they look happy and they have all of these, they look to the poorer women to have all of these choices and successes in life, but actually they're the ones with no choices, no chance of happiness because they're forced to marry these people who they don't really know. But then you also have the flip side of that, and you have the poorer women who have so many struggles because they're poor, but at the same time, looked at from a rich woman's perspective, are they not the lucky ones because they can choose who they marry, choose who they love, and choose who the controlling man in their life is? I love that struggle, and that's super interesting from the 17th century perspective, but then also you have this historic level of the Pendel witch trials going on, and the way that the masculine figures in control can use that. They can use women to push themselves higher in completely fictitious means, like completely fictitious. It is ridiculous, and you can see the idiocy and hypocrisy the whole way through this that the men can also see, but they also just keep talking about the fact that they want to grow higher and higher and higher in society, and they want to sorry, my Instagram just like lit up on my phone, and that distracted me. Oh, Jesus. But you know what I mean, you see the selfish means that these men are pushing themselves up from, and the fact that the women are powerless regardless of innocence or not. It's hugely fascinating, but also really riveting in the way that it's written, and I really like Stacey Hall's writing style. It is a fairly chunky book, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this is a really big, if you look at it against the other books I have next to me right now, it's quite big, but it's also like 300 pages, I want to say. No, 400 pages. So it's reasonably chunky, but you just tear through it. You just tear through it so easily. And if, like me, you're someone who's quite fascinated by that whole witch trials period, you're gonna love it. I would recommend as well, if you haven't been to Lancashire, you so should. It's great. You're also super near the Lake District, and you can pretend to have a rivalry with Yorkshire and like another Battle of the Roses, which if you don't know about, go and look into. You should all know about my heritage. I don't know why you should, but I kind of feel like you should. Anyway, that's kind of all I've got to say, because it's like literally a day or two before Christmas, and I got to pack and wrap, and I haven't done any Christmas wrapping yet, and that's kind of disgraceful. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure that you check out The Familiars. I will put a link below so that you can purchase it or pre-order. I'm not actually sure if it's out yet or not. Either way, thank you for the book, Bonnier, and have a lovely day, guys.